In a world drowning in filters and fake smiles, have you ever stopped to wonder what actually makes someone unforgettable? It's not the curated perfection we chase online. It's not the polished words or the flawless appearances. No, the real magnetism. It lives in the parts of us we're told to hide. What if the very things you've been taught to suppress, your depth, your silence, your vulnerability, are the exact things that make you unforgettable? Step 1. Choose authenticity over performance. Stop performing to fit in. Start showing up as your real self, because that's what people remember. Carl Jung, a pioneer of the human psyche, once said, "We are not drawn to perfection. We're drawn to what's real." And the Stoics, they knew this too. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to impress others. He wrote to understand himself. Epictetus didn't chase praise. He mastered his mind. While the world tells you to stand out by being louder, flashier, more likable, the truth is, the most powerful presence is the one that doesn't need to perform. We spend so much of our lives trying to be seen by fixing, faking, or framing ourselves to fit in. But true power, it comes from being rooted in who you are, not from chasing who you're supposed to be. So if you've ever felt like you're too much or never enough, if you've given your all and still been overlooked, this video is your mirror, your wake-up call, your invitation to flip the script. Because the 7 traits we're about to explore aren't strategies. They're not charm tricks. They're paradoxes, quiet truths that live beneath the surface. They're the reason some people stay with you, even long after they've left the room. And if something in this message speaks to your soul, if it challenges you, comforts you, or calls you out, there's just one small favor I ask. Tap that subscribe button. That's how we grow this space, not with filters, but with truth, with courage, and with depth. Let's begin. You see, somewhere along the way, pretending became easier than explaining. We perform so often, so automatically, it becomes second nature, like breathing. But here's the problem: when you wear a mask for too long, you start to forget what your real face looks like. You trade your authenticity for approval. And at first, that approval feels good. It soothes something inside. But over time, that validation starts to lose its meaning. Aristotle once said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." But how do you truly know yourself if you've spent years becoming the person the world told you to be? This isn't just about what you post online. It's deeper. It's a mindset. It's the way you stay quiet in a room full of people, even when you have something important to say. It's how you tone down your excitement because you don't want to come off as too much. It's shrinking to fit into spaces that were never designed to hold the fullness of who you are. Why? Because somewhere along the journey, someone taught you that being fully yourself was risky, too loud, too intense, too inconvenient. But here's the truth. Every person who's ever moved the world was all of those things, and they didn't apologize for it. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who your parents expected. Not who your job prefers, not the version your friends find the most comfortable, but you, the raw, unfiltered, still learning, still evolving you. That's where your true power lies, not in the polished version, but in the real one. Not in the image you've curated, but in the truth you've been hiding underneath it." Jung's entire psychological framework was built on one powerful concept: individuation. The lifelong journey of becoming whole by embracing every part of yourself, even the messy, shadowy, uncomfortable parts. And let's be honest, wholeness is far more compelling than perfection could ever be. Think about it. The people who've left the deepest impression on your life, were they the ones who looked perfect all the time? Or the ones who made you feel safe being imperfect too? The ones who spoke the truth even when it was messy? The ones who laughed with their whole chest and cried without shame? Those are the people who stay with us, not because they were flawless, but because they were real. And in a world suffocating under layers of filters and facades, being real is an act of quiet rebellion. Socrates once challenged us, the unexamined. Life is not worth living. He wasn't talking about productivity or goals. He was talking about identity. To truly examine your life, you have to ask the tough questions like, where am I performing just to be accepted? Sit with that long enough, and you'll start to notice the fractures, tiny cracks in the mirror of your identity. The subtle places where you've traded truth for comfort. And those cracks, they don't need your judgment. They need your attention, because that's where the masks live. And those masks, they're ready to come off. Because when you start peeling off the layers layer by layer, performance by performance, you begin to feel something unexpected, something wild, something unfamiliar. Freedom. But here's what no one tells you. The moment you begin living more honestly, more fully, the world doesn't always cheer you on. Some will say you're too much, too emotional, too quiet, too intense, too soft. But have you noticed? Every too much is just a polite way of saying you're hard to control. And that's exactly the point. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught us that freedom doesn't mean doing whatever you feel like. It means not being owned not by opinions, not by expectations, not by applause or rejection. It means refusing to shrink yourself just to fit into someone else's comfort zone. When you stop molding your personality to avoid rocking the boat, you reclaim something priceless. You begin to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. Plato once described the image of a cave, where people stare at shadows on the wall, believing them to be reality. But those shadows, they're illusions, false versions of the truth. And far too many of us are still trapped in that cave, mistaking the edited, filtered, people-pleasing version of ourselves for who we really are. But here's the raw truth. Authenticity isn't easy to digest. It's not designed to be. It's bold, it's layered, it's inconvenient, and often misunderstood. And yet it is so worth it. Because when you stop hiding, something beautiful happens. The right people start to see you. Not the ones who merely tolerate your light. The ones who mirror it back to you. And those who can't, they quietly drift away. No fight, no drama, just space. Let them go. You were never meant to live as the watered-down version of yourself anyway. You were meant to be whole, fully expressed, at peace with your contradictions. Not everyone will understand that, and that's okay. You don't need 100 fans. You need a handful of people who truly see you and love you, not in spite of your truth, but because of it. So the next time you catch yourself softening your edges, smiling through silence, or putting on a mask just to avoid discomfort, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, is this really me? Or is this the version of me they'll find acceptable? That one question, just one, can shift everything. Because self-respect doesn't begin with external boundaries. It begins with inner truth, with being radically honest with yourself. At the end of the day, we aren't remembered for being liked by everyone. We're remembered for being real with the few who truly mattered. So let your presence be something they feel, not just something they see. Let your authenticity speak louder than any appearance ever could. And let your truth be the reason you're never forgotten. Because growth, it's something we all claim to want. But not everyone is ready for what it really demands. Because here's the truth: most people say they want to grow. But how many truly understand what that actually looks like? Real growth isn't just about reading more books, meditating longer, or checking off external milestones. It's much deeper than that. True growth means letting go of outdated versions of yourself, not with resentment, not with fear, but with grace, and without losing your soul in the process. It's not about changing to win approval. It's about evolving in a way that brings you into deeper alignment with your truest self, with who you've always been beneath the noise. But let's be honest, some people confuse growth with performance. They shapeshift, not to elevate themselves, but to fit in. And here's the thing: fitting in is not the same as belonging. One makes you change your outfit, the other changes your life. Plato once said, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." That's it. That's the essence of true transformation. It's not about putting on a show or proving anything to others. It's about standing in front of the mirror and knowing, every step I've taken, I chose it. Not because I had to, not out of fear or survival, but because it was a conscious, quiet, grounded decision to grow. Not for them, for me. The Stoics understood this long ago. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one, simple, direct, no performance, just embodiment. For the Stoics, growth wasn't about achievements. It wasn't about medals or milestones. It was about character. About becoming someone whose inner world couldn't be shaken by outer noise. So while everyone else was chasing popularity or pretending to have it all together, the Stoics turned inward. They focused on the real work, the kind of strength no one sees but everyone feels. And here's something important: evolving doesn't mean abandoning yourself. It doesn't mean throwing away who you are. It means refining, polishing, expanding. You don't lose your essence, you upgrade it. Think of it like this: you get a new phone. It still looks like yours, still functions like yours, but now it runs faster, smoother, smarter. That's what happens when you grow. You're not becoming someone new. You're just removing the glitches, cleaning up the outdated code, unlocking features that were always there. You just hadn't tapped into them yet. The truth? You've always had the potential. Growth simply brings it online. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole. And part of that journey is learning to shed the parts of you that were built on fear, on people-pleasing, on avoiding discomfort. Because not everything you picked up along the way was meant to stay. In the last section, we talked about shedding old layers that were never truly yours. Now, let's talk about the tools you once needed, and the moment you realize they no longer serve the person you're becoming. Because some beliefs, some habits, even some parts of your identity, they weren't mistakes, they were survival tools. They helped you navigate a certain season of life. They protected you, gave you structure, and for that, they deserve respect. But now, those same tools might be the very things keeping you small. And the moment you realize that, really see it, is the moment your growth becomes conscious, not reactive, not driven by pressure or comparison, but born from a deeper understanding of who you are and who you're ready to become. Let's clear something up. Choosing to grow doesn't mean you hate the person you are right now. It means you love yourself enough not to stay stuck. That's the real difference. People who fear change often think growth is a rejection of the present. But in truth, real growth is rooted in deep respect for where you are. So much respect that you refuse to let it be your ceiling. You say, I've made it this far, and now I'm ready to go further. That's not self-rejection. That's self-respect. Socrates once said, the unexamined life is not worth living. But here's the twist. When you start examining your life, you don't need to bring judgment. Bring curiosity. Start noticing the patterns. Where have you expanded? Where are you still stuck? Where have you traded your values just to belong in rooms you never even wanted to be in? That kind of awareness is power, because you can't change what you won't face. But once you see it clearly, you get your power back. You realize you don't need permission to evolve. You don't need a milestone or a perfect moment. You can begin right now. And let's be real. Growth, it's messy. It's not always glamorous. It's not just glow-ups and breakthroughs. Sometimes growth is awkward. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it means saying goodbye to people who only loved the quieter, softer, more agreeable version of you. And when that happens, let them go. Because your purpose was never to keep everyone comfortable. You're here to keep your soul awake. Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Growth works the same way. It's not one big leap. It's 1,000 small choices. It's the daily decision to choose. Reflection over reaction. Discipline over impulse. Courage over comfort. And yes, you won't always get it right. You'll stumble. You'll regress. You'll question yourself. But the goal has never been perfection. The goal is progress. It's becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to announce their evolution, because it's written all over how you show up, how you speak, how you move through the world, how you carry yourself, even in silence. And that's when you'll know you're evolving, when your silence begins to speak louder than your explanations, when your peace begins to speak louder than your anxiety, when the same things that used to trigger you now teach you, when the people you used to chase for validation start chasing clarity, because you've made it unmistakably clear who you are and where you're going. So if you're sitting there right now, asking yourself, is it time to change? Here's your sign. Yes. Don't wait for rock bottom. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the world to tell you it's safe. You are allowed to outgrow the spaces that once felt like home. You're allowed to evolve, to stretch, to shift direction. You're allowed to release labels that no longer describe who you are. Because growth is not betrayal. Growth is truth. And when that growth is rooted in your values, not your fears, it becomes something no one can take away from you. You don't grow to become lovable. You grow because you already love yourself enough to move forward, to let go, to rise. And that is what makes you unforgettable. Not the version of you that stayed the same to keep the peace. Not the one who dimmed their light just to fit in, but the version who kept becoming, even when no one else understood. The journey. So keep becoming, because we've all been sold a lie, that to be loved, respected, or remembered, we have to be perfect, that we need to smooth out every rough edge, erase every mistake, and walk through life polished and untouchable, like some kind of human statue. But here's the truth no one tells you until you're exhausted trying to keep up. Perfection doesn't connect people. Pain does, struggle does, humanity does. Nobody bonds over the highlight reel. Nobody remembers you for how curated your life looked. They remember the moments you fell and chose to rise again. The moments you were vulnerable, raw, real. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. But real self-knowledge doesn't come from bragging about your strengths. It comes from owning your shadows, from admitting the messy parts, from saying, that part of me, yeah, I've stumbled there, and I'm not ashamed, because shame only survives in silence. It only has power when you hide. But the moment you bring your flaws into the light, they lose their grip. You begin to reclaim your power. Step 2. Embrace your emotional depth as a strength. Your intensity isn't a flaw. It's the fire that makes you unforgettable. Carl Jung said it best. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. That part of you you've been hiding, the one you think makes you too much, too emotional, too complicated, too different. What if that's actually your superpower? What if the very thing you've been tucking away is the one thing that could set you apart, make someone else feel seen, or guide them out of their own darkness? But if you bury it out of fear, you don't just silence a part of yourself. You rob the world of the very thing that makes you uniquely you. Let's be honest, we've all got scars, emotional ones, mental ones, maybe even physical ones. And for years, society has tried to sell us this idea. Cover it up, hide your pain, conceal your past, tone down your sensitivity, erase your story. But those scars, they are not signs of weakness. They're proof that you've lived, proof that you felt deeply, endured the unthinkable, fought through it, and refused to give up. Your resilience, your ability to bounce back, that's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes people lean in. People don't remember the ones who never cracked. They remember the ones who cracked, but didn't collapse. Let's bring in the Stoics for a moment. Epictetus taught us that it's not what happens to you that matters, it's how you respond. Your mistakes, your failures, they don't define you. But your response to them, that's your character. That's your identity. That's your story. And here's the thing about stories. They don't move us when everything goes right. They move us when the protagonist faces the fire and walks through it anyway. Socrates once said, "Be as you wish to seem. Not perfect, not pristine, just real." Because people today, they're not searching for flawless idols. They're searching for proof. Proof that being human doesn't make them broken. And when you show up, flaws, wounds, and all, you become that proof. You become a mirror, a reflection of what's possible. When someone finally stops trying to be untouchable and dares to be honest. So, think about this for a moment. What's one thing you've been hiding because you were convinced it made you less? One chapter in your story you've avoided sharing because you feared it would change how people see you. But what if that part of your story, the one you're most ashamed of, is actually the very thing that makes you unforgettable? What if the part you've tried to erase is the one someone else needs to hear to feel less alone? Plato believed that truth isn't just something we find outside ourselves, but something we carry within. And what truth could be more powerful than this? Yes, I've struggled. Yes, I've failed. And yes, I'm still here. That's not weakness. That's not a confession. That's a declaration. That's you standing in your full, messy, powerful humanity and refusing to shrink for anyone else's comfort. Because Here's the thing. The world doesn't need another polished, filtered personality. It needs realness. It needs people who've been through the fire and didn't let it turn them cold. Now let's talk about what that realness actually looks like in practice. The world needs people who still care deeply, even after they've been hurt. People who still show up fully, even when it's terrifying to do so. That kind of presence, it stays with you. It leaves a mark. It's the kind of energy that walks into a room and shifts the air, not by force, but by feeling. And here's something you need to hear. You don't owe anyone an apology for the person you once were. The past version of you. They were doing the best they could with what they knew back then. You don't honor them by erasing them. You honor them by building on them. By becoming wiser, stronger, more grounded, not in spite of them, but because of them. Growth isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about owning it so fully, so unapologetically, that no one can use it against you. Got flaws? Welcome to the club. You're not broken. You're human. You're real. And real people, they don't need to be perfect. They just need to be honest, resilient, willing to show up, even when the healing isn't finished yet. Because let's be honest, there's a quiet desperation so many of us carry around, without even noticing it, a craving to be picked, to be seen, to be validated. It starts when we're young, doesn't it? We're taught to raise our hands, wait patiently, be agreeable, and hope someone notices us. But here's the part no one tells you. The more you try to be chosen, the less you feel like you belong. Why? Because being chosen puts all the power in someone else's hands. It says, I need you to see my worth before I can believe in it myself. But that's not power. That's permission seeking, dressed up as love. And here's the shift that changes everything. Stop waiting to be picked. Start deciding who earns access to you. That one change. It's not small. It's revolutionary. Because now, instead of shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's world, you're standing tall in your own. And you're asking, does this person deserve to be here? Not from arrogance, but from alignment. Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. And part of that learning is realizing you were never meant to beg for belonging. You weren't put here to audition for acceptance. You're not a product trying to land a sale. You're a human being, full, flawed, growing. And the people who are meant for you, they won't need convincing. They'll feel your energy. They'll recognize it for what it is, not just valuable, but rare. Carl Jung believed that people project their unmet needs and unacknowledged shadows onto others. So if someone makes you feel like you have to constantly prove yourself, like your love has to be earned, now let's talk about what that really means for you. Because when someone demands performance in exchange for love or respect, what they're really showing you is not your lack, but their own emptiness. Their inability to see value unless it's wrapped in effort, achievement, or applause. That's their lesson to learn, not yours to carry. Your lesson is this: you are the chooser. Your life is your sanctuary. Your energy is your most valuable currency. And not everyone gets unlimited access just because they ask nicely. Take a moment to imagine how different your relationships might look if, instead of wondering, do they like me? You asked, do they align with who I'm becoming? Not the version of you that needs to be praised. Not the version that's always pleasing and shrinking, but the version that is rooted, evolving, and choosing peace over chaos. Suddenly, the goal shifts. It's no longer about how to be more likable. It's about how to live more authentically. And when you start living from that place, something wild begins to happen. People start respecting you, not for what you do for them, but for how you carry yourself, for how you protect your peace, for how you know who you are and refuse to bargain with that. Plato once said, "The measure of a man is what he does with power, and real power, authentic, grounded, non-performative power, comes from having standards, from understanding that love, attention, and intimacy aren't things you chase. They're things you welcome when they're real, when they're right, when they're aligned. You get to decide who steps closer, who stays outside the gate, not to play games, but to protect your peace. Because let's be real, peace is expensive. You fought for it. Don't give it away for cheap. Step 3. Build your self-worth from within. You don't need to be chosen. When you choose yourself, the right people follow. There's a kind of confidence that doesn't shout, a presence that doesn't need a spotlight. And when you stop chasing approval, people feel it. They feel your self-respect. They feel your boundaries. And something inside them, consciously or not, starts thinking, this person is different. I don't want to lose this. That's what makes you unforgettable. Not because you were the loudest in the room, not because you said all the right things, but because you were whole, and you didn't hand out pieces of yourself to every person who smiled at you. Socrates once said, "The secret to change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. So build it. Build the version of you who doesn't shrink, who doesn't wait to be chosen, who knows deep down that the right people will never make you question your worth, and the wrong ones, let them go, because you don't need their permission to be powerful. From now on, don't measure your value by how many people want you. In the last part, we reframed your worth no longer measured by who wants you, but by how true you are to yourself. Now, let's talk about what happens when you finally show up in that truthfully, unapologetically. Because when you walk into the world with that kind of energy, that kind of grounded intention, people feel it. But even more importantly, you feel it. You move differently. You choose differently. You stop needing to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. And that, right there, changes everything. There's this unspoken rule floating around society. Don't feel too much. Don't speak too passionately. Don't care too deeply. Be chill. Be agreeable. Be low maintenance. But let's be honest, none of that creates real connection. What it creates is distance. It creates performance. It turns you into a muted version of yourself. So if you've ever been told you're too much, too emotional, too sensitive, too intense, let me tell you something loud and clear. That is not a flaw. That is your gift. You feel deeply because you care. You express passionately because you're alive. You're not too much. You're just not easy to ignore. And that matters. Carl Jung believed the emotional world wasn't something to repress, but something to integrate. He said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain, so that intensity you carry, it's not there to break you. It's there to wake you. It's the part of you that refuses to let life stay surface level. It insists on depth, on honesty, on meaning. Yes, it may make some people uncomfortable. But guess what? That's not your burden to carry. Their discomfort. It usually says more about their emotional limitations than your emotional intelligence. Let's pause and talk about that word intelligence. Because emotional depth isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Aristotle spoke of the virtue of moderation. But moderation didn't mean suppressing your nature. It meant mastering it, owning it, feeling without drowning, loving without losing yourself. That's the line between chaos and courage. And make no mistake, your ability to feel deeply in a world that numbs itself senseless is courageous. In a world where most people scroll endlessly, distract themselves, build walls, you show up with your heart still open. That's not too much. That's rare. So why do some people call you too much? Because intensity can't be controlled. It demands presence. It asks uncomfortable questions. It refuses to play small. It feels everything, and that kind of honesty, it terrifies those still hiding behind their masks. Your passion makes them question their apathy. Your tears make them confront their numbness. Your truth makes them squirm in the presence of their own denial. Now, let's talk about what happens when people can't meet you there. Because instead of doing the work to meet you where you are, some people will slap on a label: too intense, too emotional, too complicated. But let's be clear, that's not the truth. That's projection. Even the Stoics, yes, those masters of self-discipline, never told us to deny emotion. They told us to understand it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that power, it includes your emotional life. It includes what you feel, how deeply you feel it, and how you choose to respond. You don't need to tone yourself down. You don't need to shrink, mute, or soften your edges. You just need to direct your fire, to channel your passion with purpose, to let your emotions inform you, but not control you. That's what strength looks like. That's what emotional maturity truly is. And it's what quietly, powerfully sets you apart. Socrates once said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." And knowing yourself means knowing how deeply you feel, without making yourself wrong for it. It means honoring the fact that your sensitivity isn't weakness, it's awareness. It's the radar that detects what no one else says out loud. It's the reason your intuition is so sharp. It's why your connections go deeper, why your conversations feel real, and why the people who truly know you feel seen in a way they never have before. So no, you're not too much. You're just unwilling to live small. You're unwilling to fake indifference. You're unwilling to disconnect from what matters. And that doesn't make you difficult. That makes you authentic. In a world that rewards shutting down, you're choosing to stay open. That's a choice. That's strength. And that's unforgettable. So the next time someone says you're too much, smile. Look them in the eye and say, then go find less. Because you're not shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone. You're expanding into your full emotional power. And the people who are truly meant for you, they'll never ask you to shrink. They'll rise to meet you. They'll match your depth. They'll celebrate your passion, not flinch from it. Because people who feel deeply, love deeply. And people who love deeply, they change lives. So don't dim that. Don't dilute it. Be all of you. Be bold. Be passionate. Be honest. Because that's how you leave your mark. Not by being agreeable, but by being real. There's a quiet, grounded power that awakens in you the moment you realize, I deserve more. Not in a loud, performative way, but in a calm, unwavering presence that says, I'm not settling anymore. It's like a switch flips. Step 4. Live aligned with your values and never settle. You're not asking for too much. You are just asking the wrong people. And when that shift happens, everything begins to change. Suddenly, the old patterns. They start to fall away. The one-sided relationships, the draining conversations, the constant tolerating, the pretending. They don't disappear because the world suddenly improved. They end because you changed. Because once you know your worth, the begging ends, the chasing stops. You stop settling for scraps of love or fragments of attention. You begin holding out for what's real. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "Never value anything as profitable to yourself, which shall compel you to break your promise, lose your self-respect, or hate any man." Translation: if you have to betray yourself just to keep someone around, you've already paid a higher price. And the people who understand that, the ones who can walk away without burning the whole room down, they're dangerous in the most beautiful way. Because they can't be manipulated, they won't be guilted, and they won't stay in places where their peace keeps getting shattered. See, most people aren't afraid of losing someone who needs them. They're afraid of losing someone who doesn't need them, but chose them anyway. There's a difference, because when you truly know what lifts your energy and what drains it, you stop making decisions from loneliness. You start making them from clarity. And that kind of clarity, it's rare. It's magnetic. It's what makes people want to earn a place in your life, not assume they're entitled to it. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But here's the truth. Once you really accept yourself, you stop needing others to do it for you. And when you're no longer performing for love, something powerful happens. People finally see the real you. That version of you. The grounded one, the self-respecting one, the one who refuses to play small. That version is unforgettable. Because that kind of presence, it's stabilizing. It's refreshing. It's real. Clarity is kindness. Boundaries are not rejection. They're alignment. Now let's make something clear. Step 5. Set strong boundaries to protect your peace. Boundaries aren't walls. They're filters. They're not built to push people away. They're designed to let the right people in. Boundaries say, here's what I allow. Here's what I don't. Not out of coldness, but out of clarity. And that clarity, that's what keeps your energy protected. That's what stops you from living in constant repair mode, recovering from things that should have never made it through your door to begin with. Socrates once said, "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." So if you feel overlooked, disrespected, or unappreciated by those around you, maybe the answer isn't to fix them. Maybe it's time to stop trying to earn validation from people who don't know how to value you. Maybe it's time to build a new standard, a new way of showing up, one that doesn't bend and twist just to keep the peace. Because peace that costs your self-worth, that's not peace. That's disguised self-abandonment. Here's the thing. Knowing what you deserve doesn't mean you believe you're better than anyone. It means you've finally decided that you're not less. And that decision, it changes everything. The way you speak, the way you love, the way you choose. You stop entertaining half-effort, half-presence, half-truth. You stop settling for people who show up when it's convenient and start creating space for those who show up with consistency. You're not asking for perfection. You're asking for truth, for integrity, for someone who means it. You stop asking, "Am I expecting too much?" and start asking, "Why was I settling for so little?" Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. So let self-respect become your habit. Let saying no when something feels off become second nature. Let choosing peace over popularity become your default move. And watch, the world will adjust. The wrong people will fall away. And the right ones? They will rise. So here's your challenge. Revisit your standards today. Not your wish list, not your romanticized fantasy, but your non-negotiable the things that protect your peace, the things that protect your time, the things that protect you. Because once those are in place, you stop waiting to be treated right. You start expecting it, and that changes everything. Now, let's talk about love. There's a kind of love that feels like pressure, like a weight on your chest, the kind that whispers, "Don't leave me. I need you to be okay." It doesn't come from bad intentions, but it's heavy. It suffocates instead of supports. Why? Because when love comes from emptiness, it becomes a transaction, a subtle plea for emotional survival. You're not truly offering love, you're offering need. And no matter how sincere that feels in the moment, that kind of love ends up exhausting both people. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But that's also where real love begins. Because once you accept yourself fully with no conditions, no edits, no shame, your love stops being a tool for survival and becomes something you choose to give. You're no longer handing someone your broken pieces, begging them to glue you back together. Now let's talk about what love looks like when you're full, not fractured. Step 6. Love from fullness, not fear. Don't love to survive, love to share. Love that flows from wholeness never burns out. Because when you're whole, your love stops feeling heavy. It becomes light. It becomes peace. It uplifts instead of overwhelms. You see, people often confuse intensity with love. They think clinging means connection. That fear of losing someone means the bond is strong. But real connection, it isn't built on fear. It's built on freedom. The freedom to choose someone over and over again, not because you have to, but because you want to. No fear, no dependency, just presence. And that kind of love, it's rare because it's not about possession. It's about presence. It says, "I'm here, not because I'll fall apart if I'm not, but because this connection adds to the life I've already built." The Stoics taught us that true peace should never depend on things outside our control. Epictetus reminded us, only the educated are free. And in this case, we're talking about being emotionally educated, free from the need for constant validation to feel worthy, free from giving love only as a transaction, only to get something back. When you've done the inner work, when you've filled your own cup, you stop chasing love. You radiate it. And radiance? That's unforgettable. Think about it. When someone walks into a room carrying calm confidence, joy that doesn't depend on attention, presence that doesn't seek approval, you feel it. It's grounding. It's healing. It's magnetic. And people don't fear losing that kind of energy because it feeds their ego. They fear losing it because it awakens something real, something stable, something sacred. You don't get that presence from someone who's emotionally starving. You get it from someone who knows, deep in their bones, they're already full. And what they offer you is not a plea. It's a gift. Socrates once said, "The hottest love has the coldest end." That's the kind of love born from obsession, from neediness, from trying to fill a void by clinging to someone else. But when love starts from fullness, from peace you've earned, from a life you've built, From joy you've discovered in your own quiet moments that love doesn't burn out. It evolves. It breathes. It grows stronger over time. Because it's not asking to be rescued. It's extending a hand, offering to walk beside someone. Side by side. Not leaning. Not dragging. And this is why it matters. Why it's so important. Step 7. Do the inner work. Radiate. Don't chase healing makes you magnetic. You stop chasing love when you become the source of it. To fill your own cup first. Not later. Not when the right person finally shows up. But now. Because if your cup is empty, you'll drain every connection trying to quench a thirst only you can satisfy. But if your cup is full, if you've spent time healing, loving yourself, building your sense of worth, then you give from your overflow. And the people who deserve to be close to you, they won't try to drink from your source. And when you do, something powerful happens. The right people don't just take from your light, they honor it. They're nourished by your abundance, and in return, they protect it. Aristotle believed the highest form of love wasn't romantic, it was philia, virtuous friendship, a bond between two people committed not just to loving each other, but to bringing out the best in one another. That kind of love doesn't cling, it doesn't control, it supports, it strengthens, it creates space for both people to become more of who they truly are. But you only arrive in that kind of love by being whole before you get there. So ask yourself, am I giving love from a wound or from wisdom? Am I offering my heart out of fear or from freedom? Because real love, it shouldn't feel like a lifeline. It should feel like light. And the truth is, you don't need someone to complete you. You need someone who complements the wholeness you already fought hard to earn. That kind of energy, that kind of grounded, radiant presence, it's unforgettable. That's what people are afraid to lose. Not your perfection, your wholeness. So take care of yourself first. Feel your soul. Know your worth. And when you give love, let it be a reflection of your fullness, not a plea to be filled. Because the right people, they won't just stay. They'll protect that light. They'll rise with you, and you'll feel it. You'll know they're not here to complete you. They're here to walk beside you. The most unforgettable energy you will ever carry is the quiet knowing that you are whole, without needing to prove, perform, or chase. When you choose yourself first, the right people will never ask you to shrink. They'll expand with you. And if this message stirred something in you, if it reached a part of you that's been waiting to be seen, there's another video waiting right here on the screen that will take you even deeper. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for yourself. And thank you for being a part of this journey with Stoic Capsule. Because this space, it isn't just about Stoic philosophy. It's about becoming, slowly, intentionally, powerfully. And remember, the journey isn't over. We'll be right here when you're ready for the next step. If this resonated, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs it, and tap subscribe to join the Stoic Capsule community. Your story matters here.